not just winning it a little. We have to dominate the moderate vote. But I don't think this is a permanent realignment. But the point here is to win battleground states. Yes, of course, you have to maximize your turnout and your vote share amongst liberal voters if you're Democrat. That was a huge focus. You've got to win the center.
You've got to dominate the moderate vote. So next time, let's travel around with Dick Cheney. Maybe the guy from Duck Dynasty while we're at it.
Hey, it's Jordan. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Tumwa, Iowa. Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up.
Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. I'm desperately trying to move on from the Democratic Party's demolition as to why they lost for the second time in 8 years to a used car salesman. But the geniuses who run the party won't allow us to move on. This time, the brainiacs and corporate elite who ran Harris's campaign came out of hibernation. They went on Pod Save America to twist themselves into pretzels with excuses for why they lost. Boy, wait till you hear David Plouffe's takeaway. We need bigger super PACs that are more coordinated, and we need to dominate the moderates. Oh, God. But before we get to that, reminder, we got a special pre-Black Friday deal. I'm sending out my investigative bombshell book on the Flint water cover-up for free with my signature and a personal note for viewers who sign up at $20 a month membership. We've already gotten about 7 or 8 of you signing up at $20 a month, which is a huge help getting that type of revenue in. We got 12 more free copies to send out. So sign up today or over the holiday weekend at $20 a month, and we will be sending you a free copy with my signature and a personal note. If you can't swing it, totally understand. But for those that can, getting those memberships, additional viewers supporting our on-the-ground investigative journalism is a big help and will help us hire more people. Okay, so David Plouffe, who was Obama's campaign manager, was, universally credited with Obama's historic victory in 2008. He was a consultant, I guess, to Harris's campaign, but kind of at the top. Almost co-chair, for lack of a better word. And his takeaway, he has 2 major takeaways. Let's listen to the first one, which is we aren't doing the illegal super PAC coordination with the campaigns good enough.
Having been through this, some time ago, but then witnessing it again this time, we have to stop playing a different game as it relates to super PACs than the Republicans. Love our Democratic lawyers. I'm tired of it. Okay. They coordinate more than we do. I think amongst themselves, I think with the presidential campaign, I'm just sick and tired of it. Okay. So we cannot be at a disadvantage, number one. Number two, to Jen's point, I think you don't want duplication, but I think having multiple players on the field, as long as they're well coordinated, is great. Like back in 20, I spent a bunch of time with Tara McGowan, who now runs Courier with Acronym, and all we did, I think, was $80 or $90 million, which was great. We only did digital low information voters, right? So whatever Future Forward was doing, we were very focused on that, particularly low information voters of color. So I think to have an ecosystem where, whether it's on issues like reproductive health or climate or, manufacturing or healthcare or a specific lane that you're focused on in terms of messaging, I think that's really, really important. I think that they tend to have more entities that are, to Stephanie's point, clearly it is not legal what they're doing, but we're at a disadvantage when our folks are playing by a different set of rules than they are. I mean, I remember going back to 2012, you guys might remember this, like Mitt Romney is running around the country asking for specific dollar amounts at super PAC events. And we were told that Barack Obama couldn't even attend them.
He had to leave the room.
So
the one event, I think, right?
Right. So I just think at the end of the day, this is important. Again, this is not at the top of the reasons that we had a different outcome here. But, to win close races, you kind of want to be maximizing every piece of the arsenal. And so I think this is something we really have to reflect on.
So we have to be better crooks than the Republicans, and we need to coordinate our oligarchs and big donors pouring in money to us better with more super PACs and make them more well-oiled machines and coordinate better, which is illegal. The Republicans are doing it, so we should do it better and bigger. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of being outspent, even though they weren't. I'm sick of being outplayed, even though they weren't. I mean, you can't make this up. You can't make this up. The takeaway by Obama's whisperer, the guy who ran Obama's campaign successfully, credit to him in 2008, is even though Harris raised over $1 billion in 3 months, even though it looks like she will have outspent Trump 2-1, perhaps more than that, even though Hillary outspent Donald Trump 2-1 and lost, their takeaway is, I'm sick of the lawyers tying one hand behind our back. We need bigger super PACs. We need more super PACs, and we need to coordinate better with the campaigns, even though it's not legal. But they all do it. Hillary's campaign coordinated with super PACs. Biden's campaign coordinated with super PACs. Trump's campaign coordinated with super PACs. Election laws. That's for the peasants. It's unbelievable that this guy, one of his big trigger moments, one of his triggers is that we're not able to leverage super PACs enough. Not that, hey, maybe we should get money out of politics. Hey, maybe that Bernie guy, you know, he had it the right way because he was able to compete with small dollars without taking super PAC money. So were a lot of other progressive candidates. His takeaway is we need more money, even though for all that money you're raising, you had the better ground game by all accounts than Trump because you had more money. You had more volunteers than Trump. Trump basically had no ground game. His ground game was going on bro podcasts, Rogan, Theo Von, all the other podcasts he went on. Trump had very little ground game in 2016. You had, I mean, I drove around the country. I was on across the swing states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. I saw a lot more Harris billboards than I did Trump. I saw a lot more paid Harris signage than I did Trump. I mean, they put on star-studded events with money, with Oprah and Beyonce and Katy Perry and Eminem. Apparently, they spent $100,000 just on recreating the set for Call Her Daddy, which is a popular podcast that females listen to. They $100,000 to recreate the set because you couldn't actually go to where the physical set was. Apparently, they spent $1 million to Oprah's production company for what? I don't know. But the problem was we're not coordinating enough with our super PACs, or we're not getting big enough super PACs. I mean, how much money you need? You need $1 trillion to win? I mean, it's obscene. Obscene. But that wasn't the worst of it, actually. You think you think this was the biggest nugget of cluelessness? It actually gets worse. Listen to his takeaway as far as what constituencies Democrats actually need to target more now. Hint, hint, not young people, not progressives. Listen to who David Plouffe thinks that Democrats need to do a better job reaching.
It's always worth reminding people, it's really hard for Democrats to win battleground states. Okay. Let's look at Pennsylvania. 25% of the electorate is liberal, roughly. 34% is conservative. By the way, in most battleground states, that conservative number is over 40. So in every battleground state, there's more conservative than liberals. So in Pennsylvania, if experts are to believe, Trump won conservatives 91.8, Harris won liberals 93.6. Moderates, Harris won 56.43, but you kind of got to win 60% of them, right? So, you know, for Democrats to win battleground states, to Quentin and Jen's point, it is a false choice. You want to maximize your base, of course. And that was a place where we spent enormous time, a lot of resources. That's critical. And obviously, I think in Milwaukee, you know, just to use that as an example, we hit our turnout targets, fell a little bit short in Philly and Detroit. So that's not good. That's part of the equation. You've got to couple that with dominating in the middle, not just winning it a little. We have to dominate the moderate vote. And I think as we look ahead to 26 and 28, particularly where you have seen drift amongst non-college voters generally, particularly those of color specifically, we obviously have to get some of that back. We can't afford any more erosion there. The math just doesn't fucking work. Okay. But I don't think this is a permanent realignment. But the point here is to win battleground states. Yes, of course, you have to maximize your turnout and your vote share amongst liberal voters if you're Democrat. That was a huge focus. You've got to win the center.
You've got to dominate the moderate vote. So next time, let's travel around with Dick Cheney. Maybe the guy from Duck Dynasty while we're at it. These people are clueless. Absolutely clueless. First of all, when he says it's really tough to win battleground states, how did Obama win battleground states in 2008? Why was Florida once upon a time a battleground state? Ohio forever was a battleground state. Well, Obama ran on a public option. Obama ran policy-wise a pretty progressive campaign. Of course, he abandoned all that when he became president. How did Biden win the battleground states? Well, there was massive Trump fatigue. We're in the middle of a unprecedented once-in-a-century pandemic. Trump horrifically mismanaged it. I think a lot more people died because of Trump's recklessness and poor management. But Biden was also offering a $15 minimum wage, quickly abandoned it. He was also offering a public option, quickly abandoned it. Was offering Build Back Better and, policies that on paper could help people. Quickly abandoned most of that. Was talking about canceling some type of student loan debt. Quickly abandoned that. Was talking a good game after George Floyd was lynched on camera about police reform. Quickly abandoned that. Actually gave $32 billion more to police. But when David Plouffe says, the battleground states tend to be more conservative, I don't know. David Plouffe, by all reports, is just a data wizard and addicted to data, and all he looks is data. Well, here's my data. I've gone around the country for the last 9 years. I'm almost at 10. Started going around the country at the end of 2015. So next year will be about a decade. I've traveled to 35 states, probably over 70 cities. I've interviewed on camera and off camera thousands of working class people. The battleground states are not conservative. The battleground states are predominantly working class. And if you give the menu of policies to working class people, remove the labels. If you give the menu of policies and they are progressive policies, progressive populist policies, they have overwhelming support among progressive-minded people, among liberal-minded people, among conservative-minded people, even among most independent and older voters. The problem isn't that the battleground states are more conservative, so we need to, quote, dominate the moderates. The problem is the battleground states have been battered by an economic machete, an economic battering ram called neoliberalism, which David Plouffe and the rest of the folks that were sitting on that panel, Harris's campaign manager, Harris's communications director, and others that ran Harris's campaign, have been champions of. The battleground states, the key ones in the Great Lakes, have been deindustrialized with millions of their jobs sent to other countries over the last 40 years. By both parties did it, but it was Bill Clinton who signed NAFTA with Republican support. It was Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton who were cheerleading for the TPP, which would have been the final nail in the coffin of organized labor. I've gone to former industrial cities like Altoona, Pennsylvania. I've been to the former steel cities in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, the cities that used to lead the world in carpentry, in auto. Some of them look like ghost towns. They've been completely hollowed out because of neoliberalism, because of market-oriented economy. That's why the Democrats have been losing shares in the battleground states, not because most voters, by osmosis, are conservative or moderate. And by the way, when David Plouffe, since he's a data guy, let me present some data to you. When you say we need to dominate the moderates, we need to play to the moderates, which basically means conservatives. Is there any thought to, hey, in the last 8 years, we've had a 7% drop in turnout among young people? This is just looking at the exit polls from 2016, 2020, and 2020. Colin made this graph. 18 to 44. Age 18 to 44, that is millennials and Gen Z. 44% turnout 2016, 37% turnout this year. That is a 7% drop in under 50. The young ones, Gen Z, and the millennials, which I'm part of. If you just want to look at Gen Z, which is predominantly the 18 to 29, that's a 5% drop. Hey, while you're trying to dominate the moderates, you're losing a generation of young people. Why? Because they're broke and starving. Not just the young. We're talking millennials all the way up to 45. And by the way, Gen X too ain't doing so swell in this neoliberal hellscape. That is a massive drop in turnout, 7%. And you're talking about we need to dominate the moderates? Why is there such a drop in turnout among millennials and Gen Z? Maybe because for the first time in their lives, they were actually spoken to by an old Jewish socialist named Bernie Sanders. He brought millions of people into the political process, including people watching right now. Of course, a lot of people were disappointed by how it turned out. Some people turned away from Bernie, not liking that he played footsie with his good friend Joe. Putting all that aside, they were spoken to. For the first time, somebody was speaking reality of why they are buried in debt, why they can't find good living wage jobs, why they feel they have no economic future in this country, why they don't have health care. Their enemy was declared by Bernie, the top 1%, the donors. The system is rigged. Turnout was much higher in 2016, but as the Democratic Party and elites rigged 2 elections against Bernie, and we've already gone through that many times, turnout seemed to drop considerably. A lot of those young people held their nose and voted for Biden in 2020. They were told, again, this is the most important election of our lifetime. They were told, we need to stop the fascists. But they were also told $15 minimum wage. They were also told a public option. They were also told we're going to do real things on climate, not tax credits or credits to companies to enhance wind and renewable, which was disguised as historic climate policy in the Inflation Reduction Act. Yeah, tax credits, that would have been nice 15 years ago. That's like bringing a super soaker to a block fire when 20 homes are on fire. Hey, let's bring a fire department with super soakers. Maybe that's something you should focus on. You're losing generations of young people. Hey, I didn't even hear the word Gaza once in this podcast. I got 20 minutes left. Maybe they'll surprise me in the Pod Save America. Did you notice that there were tens of thousands of young people all over the country protesting because the Democratic Party was providing a blank check so that Israel could slaughter innocent Palestinians under the guise and distortion of defense? Maybe that's why you're losing young people. Young people are starving. They're buried in debt. They don't have health care. They're working 2 to 3 jobs. They're working a job and then driving Uber. They can't move out of mom and dad's basement. They can't get married or start a family. Maybe that's why they're not showing up. Hey, but we need to dominate the moderates. And no disrespect, some people are politically moderate. Some people are more socially liberal, but economically, they want their tax cuts or whatever. I have gone through the country. If the Democratic Party wants some market research, come to me. You got to pay me at Status Coup. I'll tell you everything you need to know, but you're not going to control my content. We maintain editorial control. But if you want some market research, if you want to know the pulse of America, not that I know everything, but I can tell you, I've interviewed conservatives, I've interviewed liberals, I've interviewed neoliberals, I've interviewed progressives, I've interviewed anarchists, I've interviewed no labels, I've interviewed them all across the country. And there's one through line in all of them. They are fed up with the establishment. They are economically hurting. They want and are attracted to progressive populist economic policies. They want healthcare. They want cheaper education. They care about the climate inferno. They want their jobs and industries brought back to America, and they want the money out of politics. It's not that complicated. Will the Democratic Party learn these lessons? Of course not. But will we keep telling you the truth? You bet your bottom dollar. Please, please, please support real, independent, investigative journalism. StatusCoup.com/join. I know there's a lot of things that you need to purchase for the holidays. Purchase and support real, independent, investigative journalism. We are the only outlet that I know of that is independent and routinely on the ground across America. It costs a lot of money. StatusCoup.com/join. And one more reminder, we've got 12 more copies of this, 12 copies left. So we are sending out free copies of my book, We the Poisoned, Exposing the Flint Water Cover-Up, to the last 12 people that sign up as paid members at $20 a month. StatusCoup.com/join. With the book, you'll get my signature and a personal note. Thank you very much. And by the way, have a great Thanksgiving to those celebrating.